Good. Let me get the guy's opinion on that. I mean, obviously you're cognizant of the Hispanic influence on voting, and how do you deal with it, Kyle?
I think of it from a demographic standpoint, and I think about a state like California, where Hispanics compose almost 40% of the population. Non-Hispanic whites are, I think, 47%, and then I think Asian is 12, and African American, I don't know the number. But so let's just focus on the Hispanic for a second. So it's almost 40. In the 2010 gubernatorial race, that 40% of the population only composed 22% of the overall vote. So as a group, they way under index in terms of their turnout. Whites, non-Hispanic whites, which were under 50%, composed 62% of the electorate. So now they way overperform for that section of the population. So when you look at that, and then you think about, okay, how am I going to do my strategy on Hispanic media? Because I'm going to be talking to a group that's going to way underperform in terms of the overall electorate. So how much money am I going to dedicate to that? Lorena, you made a good point about the rates. They are much lower, so I don't need to spend a lot in the marketplace. Stations, Univision, they're dominant players. The numbers are, it's like broadcast 20 years ago. The numbers were just great. You know, it's not like that anymore. So it's also much easier when you're purchasing. The other thing to think about, the third point I wanted to make on that was when you start to dig through a lot of the qualitative research, you see that Hispanics who vote consume a lot of English TV. So do I need to have a specific Spanish-only message on a broadcast medium when I know that there's crossover on the English mediums? So there's lots of things to balance out, and I think that's why overall Hispanic media is getting a much lower share.
Great. Fred?
I think that's right. I think it's budget related. Almost the race that Kyle's talking about, they had kind of an enormously high media budget. When I did Schwarzenegger's last race, I think our media budget was $90 million, something like that. And that was enough money in those days that we had specific creative and media plans for Vietnamese television and radio. But you would never do that if you had a more normal media budget. Right. Carly's media budget, I think, was under $20 million. So we didn't have the extraneous part. So I don't know whether it's an excuse or not, but we tend to go at it the way Kyle says, you know, when you look at actually who votes and how many of them also speak English. To me, that's exactly why those dollars aren't flowing there. Though, as Lorena says, it's growing rapidly, and I'm sure that will change.
Well, if I could just say, so in California, so Senator Boxer lost the white Anglo vote by 18 points. Those 18 points, she's senator, U.S. Senator today, and part of that is because there was a coalition of Hispanic, African American, and Asian American voters. So while they do underperform, they are critical in putting people at the top. Governor Brown lost the Anglo vote by 10 points. Senator Reid lost it by 10 points. Senator Bennett lost it by 7, yet they're all elected and they're governing now. And so, yes, we do need, and part of it is, it's sort of a catch-22. Well, we don't want to spend in the Hispanic market because they don't perform, but we've got to spend in the Hispanic market if we want them to perform. So it's sort of a chicken-egg issue. I prefer to tell my clients, I'd rather be on the safe side. I'd rather get every last vote, early vote, all of that, and let's just win.
I'm shocked.
Let's move it to a somewhat different topic, and that's issue and policy advertising. We're seeing a lot more of it. We're seeing it in off years as well as in election years, and it seems to be a category that political consultants and political media specialists are gravitating to as a new field. Can you guys give us a sense of how you see that growing, or whether that's going to be a locally oriented thing or a nationally oriented thing, just as a category?
In our case, we kind of have examples cooking right now in both, in a national category and a lot of locals. I think it's been sort of a local issue. And it's always been one where people, on federal issues, even though they might be locally related, it's one where your client thinks, well, here's what I can do. I can run a few local ads and a few DC ads, and I will accomplish the goal. Because I will have the people that talk to my senator or my congressman, they'll be mentioning to him that they've seen this. That, is kind of a weak strategy. We're trying to change that and improve that a bit, which I think would cause it to grow somewhat. In our world, we look at it that at the end of the day, there's one motivating factor for every politician, and that's getting reelected. And it can be their largest donor comes in and beats them over the head, of course they're going to listen. This happens, of course they're going to listen. But if they think they're going to lose because of something, if you can make them feel they have a potential to lose if they don't be a certain way on an issue like Obamacare, then all of a sudden you really have their attention. So that's what we try to do with them. That's our strategy on all of those.
Kyle?
We look at the spending. We want to spend all the money. So from our perspective, I just think about 2009. It was such a bad year for issue advertising because the president was so popular and nobody wanted to go after him, so that you didn't have a lot of issue groups. But once his once his favorables were under 50, the horse was out of the barn. And I think a lot of it is driven by, from what I see, is just legislative versus regulatory. How much is Congress just going to decide not to do much controversial legislation, they're just going to regulate? And I think you're seeing a little bit of that. You saw a lot more of that in 2009. In 2010, it was different because it was an election year and because Republicans have become so popular because of the health care bill. Not that the Republicans were popular, I don't mean to say that. The Democrats became unpopular. That's really what happened.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Lorena?
Well, I think that a couple things happened. In 2008, the Obama campaign really cut down on independent expenditures and outside advertising, and they really had the ability to flow in all the dollars through the campaign. And I think that's basically, at least on the D side, what maintained it for the next couple of years. That's one of the reasons why there was very few outside spending on these issues. Healthcare, however, was one of the things that really just blew out of the box. And we actually did, it was healthcare equity for all, and we helped pass the healthcare bill. But we actually put pressure on both Democratic and Republican senators. Our client wanted to go against both, and so those are the ads that went out in the South and in Florida as well. So, there was a lot of dollars there to push healthcare, and unfortunately, I think that the healthcare fiasco actually happened. It took too long to happen and actually didn't allow a lot of other issues to come up. But I do think that had it happened a little quicker, other issues would come up and then more spending would have come through. So I do have to say that it really is based completely on what the agenda is on the Hill, which may or may not be in coordination with the White House at any given point.
Right, thank you. I'm afraid we're out of time. So with that, I'd like to wrap it up and have a big hand for our panel. Thank you very
Nice job. Nice job.
This was fun.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.